I'd like to call this meeting of the St. Clair County Board of Commissioners to order. First, we'll have roll call.
Commissioner McConnell.
Here.
Commissioner Tamian.
Here.
Commissioner Heidemann.
Here.
Commissioner Riley.
Here.
Commissioner Rushing. Commissioner Graytop. Here. Commissioner Bowen.
Here. Thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda, we have additions and deletions, changes to the agenda, and what I would like, yes, I would like to propose that we move an item that is currently on the Ways and Means Committee agenda. It's item 7E, the resolution concerning the St. Clair County Reverse Scholarship Fund, and move that to our Human Services as item 7B.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the time set aside on our agenda to hear from any citizens who would like to address the Board of Commissioners this evening. I don't believe I see anybody that has an interest in doing that tonight. So next we go to updates. Are there any updates from the Commission on human service matters? Seeing none. Mr. Kaufman, do we have any conceptual initiatives? We have no old business. New business, we have the request from the Health Department for a closure for a staff training day, and this is for final action? Yes. It is for final action.
I would so move.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Now we come to the matter that we moved to the Human Services agenda, which is the St. Clair County Reverse Scholarship Fund, and we have with us Randy Myers from the Community Foundation. Randy, would you like to come up and address the Commission?
Thank you. Let me just give you a little background. This is a fairly unique situation where, to my knowledge, it's the first time a community foundation in Michigan has needed government blessing to do something. And it's a scenario that bodes well for the region, but is addressing a problem. What we're finding after several years of feedback and discussion with our partners throughout the thumb is that people are sometimes question why we provide so many scholarships to college students that go away and don't return back home to participate in the community, get jobs, raise families in this region. So we have been exploring an opportunity to create a brand new program that's never been done before by any community foundation in America, which is instead of giving kids front-end scholarships when they graduate high school, reverse that model and say when you've graduated successfully with a degree in a STEAM field, and if you're willing to move back home and take a job or create a job in St. Clair County, then we'll give you a scholarship. That's the positive side of it. The downside is that since no foundation has ever tried this before, we have to prove it's a community need. And on the surface, the argument is this is not a charitable need. Since it's not an obviously charitable need, what we have to have is a discussion with government and economic development agencies and entities that demonstrate the lack of STEAM graduates coming back to this region is a burden on the government. It is a burden on society. It's a burden on our economy and our prosperity. So the unique thing of this partnership is we're not asking you for any money. We're willing to fund it with our donors. But we need an agreement that the county, the Board of Commissioners, and other partners recognize that the lack of these STEAM graduates coming back to St. Clair County is in fact a burden. And it's that proof of burden, or at least your belief that it's a burden, that actually opens the doors for foundations to do something about it. So it's a very critical step. Our partners up in Huron County have already done this. Sand Lake County is next, and we're in the process now. We're using a firm called Clark Hill out of Detroit. Gary's probably familiar with Clark Hill. They're drafting a legal opinion that we'll have in about 6 weeks. That'll say, in our opinion, based on the economic indicators in St. Clair County and the thumb of Michigan, based on the resolution by your Board of Commissioners, it is in fact a burden of government. It is a problem for your community, and that should open the door for us to do something about it. So we're excited. We'd like to try and launch this in spring of 2016. It'll be a joint regional program between us and the other 2 community foundations. And we'll start out with awards that are at least $10,000 each. That may be a little too light, actually, to attract someone back, but that'll be the threshold. And we'd like to start that in 2016. To give you a scale of potential impact over time, next year we'll do about $200,000 in scholarships. So if we can start talking to donors now about switching from traditional front-end scholarships to back-end scholarships where they're actually moving back here, paying taxes, and raising a family, you could visualize a pretty substantial impact over time. If we're able to bring back 5 or 6 families a year that enroll their kids in school, that buy houses, after 5 or 10 years, you're talking about somewhat of a significant impact on our economy. So that's kind of the basis for this approach. As I said, in my career, I've never seen this happen before, where we actually need the blessing of a unit of government to say, yes, we agree, this is a problem, and we'd like you to do something about it.
Tom?
Randy, did you say that other communities or areas have already started this and it's working?
No one's ever done it before.
Okay. All right.
Huron County already has their legal opinions, but they're not going to do anything until we're ready as well. And then, like I said, it'll be us, Sanilac County, and Huron County all at once.
Okay. All right.
The key, though, is for now, each county has to be completely isolated and stand alone. So if you read through the contract we have, an applicant can't already be living physically in St. Clair County to be eligible. So if they're a graduate from Michigan or Central or Grand Valley, they have to be living outside of the area, or they have to have been already gone for several years. Maybe they moved to Chicago and they're pondering a return back here to start a family. And then we give them some time frame to get a job, but they can't physically be living here, but they do have to promise to move back to St. Clair County.
Mr. Graytop?
I have one question and one comment. First comment is item 4E talked about when you come back there, you have to live here, stay here. And I had a question with Randy as to how long that would be. He informed me that since you get payments on a quarterly basis, tell me if I'm getting this right, Randy, you get your payments on a quarterly basis. So if you come back and you stay for 9 months or whatever, and you decide to go, your payments stop at that point and you get nothing further. So that was the answer to a question that I had, and I thought maybe somebody else might have had that question. The other one I had, Randy, was if you live in, say you live in Huron County, can you go from Huron to St. Clair?
You could, and that brings up a very interesting point, Bill. We're trying to avoid competition, because the truth of the matter is our foundation on this side of the state, we can't compete with Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo or Detroit. So we're trying to avoid the competition. That's why you'll notice words like we give preference to applicants that have family ties to St. Clair County. That gives us a little bit of ability to say, look, we're not trying to compete with Grand Rapids. If a kid's from Grand Rapids, you have every right to try and recruit them back here. But if there are kids that have family ties to St. Clair County, we want to give them a financial reason to come back home. But you're right, we'll pay these awards on a quarterly end basis. So again, if they start out at $10,000 or $15,000, we're going to divide that by 4 to 6 to 8 quarters. At the end of each quarter, we'll give you a partial payment. If you decide to leave, you don't want to live here anymore, and you move out, you forfeit all future income.
Other questions or comments about this proposal? I think it's really innovative. You know, Kalamazoo has its promise.
Yep.
But I think this is a wonderful first step, and I really congratulate the foundation for coming up with this concept. Now, yes, Mr. Graytop.
Randy, one other question. How are we going to get the word out to these kids that this exists? This doesn't exist anywhere right now, so how are we going to get the word out to these people that it does exist?
It's going to be a complicated effort. I'm happy to say that Hale Walker, one of the owners of Michigan Mutual, is going to chair our reverse scholarship committee. It's really going to take a lot of word of mouth in the business community. The business community, the EDAs, the DDAs, all those other, and families need to get word out. So if your son or daughter has moved off to Charleston or Chicago or Austin, Texas, and is pondering a return home, it'll take a broad effort to get the word out that you can apply for money and get paid to come back home. So there's no one answer. It's going to be a lot of social media, a lot of printed materials, and just having partners get the word out.
I'd make the motion for final action.
Support. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Randy. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The other two items, well, the only other item we have on the agenda is for information only. It's the Health Department September points of interest.
Make a
Mr. Chair,
motion, we
I
receive
move
and
that
file.
we, second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Move to adjourn?
Support.
Do we need a motion to receive and file packets first?
Yeah. I would so
Yeah.
move.
Seconded by Commissioner Riley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now a motion to adjourn.
I'm not gonna make it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gavel down.
I'd like to call the Judiciary of Public Safety Committee to order with roll call, please.
Commissioner Bowman.
Here.
Commissioner Greatham. Here. Commissioner Rushing. Commissioner Riley.
Here.
Commissioner Heidemann.
Here.
Commissioner Tommy.
Here.
Commissioner McConnell. Here.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Support?
Moved and supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no additions or corrections on that, it's approved on that. Citizens, doesn't look like we have any more than Mr. Tommy and Ed, so we'll go by that. Updates, conceptual, Mr. Kaufman, do you have anything?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. Old business, none. New business, item A. This is a resolution 15-21 District Court Capital Improvement Fund.
Make a motion, we send it on to the full board.
Support. Okay.
Moved and supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Item B, radio console maintenance agreement renewal, Motorola.
Make a motion, we send to the full board.
Support.
Moved and supported to send to the full board, all in favor?
Aye.
Item C, for year 2016 Michigan Mental Health Court Grant Program Contract.
Mr. Chair, I move that this contract be forwarded to the full board meeting.
Support.
Moved and supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Item D, Region 10 Prepaid Inpatient Health Plan Agreement Inmate Intervention Services.
Chairman, I'll also move that that item be forwarded to the full board for consideration.
Support.
Moved and supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Item E, for year 2015 Port Security Grant Program Agreement Marine Division.
Make the motion.
Support.
Moved and supported to move that on. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, question, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out that looks like there's $83,644 in a local match. And if I'm reading this correctly, it's going to come from the sale of federal surplus. The dive team has put together along with some in-kind service. So it doesn't appear that it's coming out of anybody's budget other than pick up some equipment and some man hours.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, having said that, you know, the Marine Division, you know, they put in some extra time this year between the float down and the powerboat races and everything. You know, I wish we could give them more support some way or another. It is the way it is, I suppose.
It is a problem.
This is a standard thing we do about every year.
They get cut pretty bad and this year was another on the match program, but it is a lot of people don't really realize how much the Marine Division does with the waterways we have and what they have to do.
As a county, we have a lot of water frontage that needs to be secured.
Well, we do, and they're the only ones out there doing the type of work they are, so I think it's important. We have to keep that in the back of our mind.
Howard, you wanted to whack them 5 years ago, if I remember.
And I went out and I saw what they did, and I go, uh-oh. Yeah, that'll open your eyes pretty fast when you're out there on the water with them and seeing what they have put up.
Bobbing in the water when they came by or something?
Okay, did we have a vote on that?
Not yet.
Okay, all in favor on that, please.
Aye.
Okay, item F, Intervention Center of Mental Health Coordination Agreement with CMH.
Make a motion, it goes to the full board.
Support.
Moved and supported to the full board, all in favor.
Aye.
Item G for year 2015 Port Security Grant Program Agreement Emergency Management.
Motion to send it on to the full board.
Support.
Question by Mr. Greaton.
It's only $20,000, there is no local match, but it's for radios, and I'm assuming that you guys are aware of the fact that the radios that are now being used out there have kind of end of life right now, and there's going to be an expense in replacing a lot of those mobile radios that are out there right now, so maybe this will go toward helping some of that. Just in case you're not aware, I think Jeff and maybe myself, and I know Tom will probably be there, might go to the next meeting just to discuss this.
Yeah, October 7th, I actually had a meeting with Jeff Friedland, had lunch with him actually yesterday to talk about a handful of different things, and we brought the radio issue up. And I think the biggest thing, like anything that I told Jeff, depending on what direction we're going to go in the county, or is the county going to pay for them, or individual jurisdictions going to pay for them, just to let these managers and township officials know, give them ample heads up so they can start taking inventories of their radios, take a look at it, replacements. I know they've already been starting the process, looking at some different alternatives for the radios and those types of things. So
I did have some meetings with police and fire guys regarding those radios, and the problem is there's a lot of those radios that everybody thought, well, because they're getting old, they got to be updated and replaced, but a lot of those radios are really like new. They just haven't been used that much, and therefore they are age-wise, and if they break, could be a problem with maintenance, but there's still a clause in there where they got parts in that. But there is some of the radios that get used daily by the patrolmen, especially. They get knocked around pretty bad, and those should be replaced. So yeah, I think it's a big issue out there, and I know that they are looking at even an alternate kind that they're using right now, different kind, because of expenses. And so it will be up kind of, it is a big issue coming up. But I think the local municipalities, I know they're looking at their own resources, I'll say.
Because those old radios, the ones that are still in good operating condition,
Correct.
they all operate on 800 megahertz. So theoretically, we could have our first responders, identify those that the radios are basically wore out.
Correct.
And replace those first on the schedule, because 10 years ago, when we put all of those 800 megahertz radios in play, to replace them all at one time now is going to be a real burden, not on just the county, but all of the cities and the townships.
Exactly right, and that's why they have to look at what they got and how it works and how it fits in. And going to the 800 was the best thing we possibly could have ever done for the county, because too many times during those years you had police officers and fire officers stepping on each other, two different incidents on the same frequency. And it was a mess on if anybody had a radio or was involved at the time. And this 800 was just a blessing. So when you call in the morning, you got a major fire given to you, you can ask for a separate channel, and you go off, and nobody knows what's going on, and everybody carries on their business. So it was a a real blessing what the county did to get involved in that. I will admit to that. I think it's now, I think we gotta look and see, okay, how many radios you got, how many have been really worn out, and let's look at that. That's,
I think the real eye opener back then was when we had an event down in St. Clair, and the St. Clair Fire Department and the St. Clair Township Fire Department were working on it, but they had to send runners because they were both on different frequencies. And so going to 800 megahertz solved
Right.
that problem.
Yep, you're right, Howard. Okay,
Sending runners in this day and age.
I don't think we voted on that, do we not? Okay, do we got first, second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Any other safety matters to be bringing up? Information only, none, and motion to receive and file packets, please.
Support?
Moved and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Moved and supported. Thank you.
Aye.
That's it.
You just woke Gary up. I'd like to call the St. Clair County Board of Commissioners meeting to order for Environmental and Public Works Committee. Madam Clerk, would you take the... Oh, I'm sorry.
Got that, Caitlin?
Sorry about that.
Use your lower voice.
He doesn't make it very often, and then he insults.
Mr. Clerk?
Use your lower voice.
You know, his hair isn't curling, you know.
Commissioner McConnell.
Here.
Commissioner Bone.
Here.
Commissioner Tommy.
Here.
Commissioner Greatow.
Here.
Commissioner Riley.
Here.
Commissioner Rushing. Commissioner Chairman Heidemann.
Here. Now that I'm wide awake, I took a sip of coffee, we can move on. First of all, any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 5A, solid waste plan amendment, be removed from tonight's agenda.
Okay, that's a motion.
Second.
Is there a second? There's been a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Moved and second by Commissioner Riley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Any citizens to be heard? Seeing none. Any updates from commissioners? Seeing none. Any conceptual initiatives? Seeing none. No old business. New business. First of all, the Agricultural Prevention Board appointment.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the appointment of Megan Naplin be forwarded to the full board for consideration for appointment to the Agricultural Preservation Board.
She's got quite a resume, doesn't she? It's been seconded by Commissioner Greatow. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Brownfield Development Authority appointment.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we send Dan Lockwood and John Osborne on as candidates to the full board.
Yeah. It's been moved and supported by Commissioner McConnell. They're both reappointments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. You'll have to excuse my cold here. The next item on our agenda is for the airport, their industrial park, and it's for final action. So if I could have a motion on the construction administration agreement.
Make a motion, we send it to the full board.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, this is final action. I'll make a motion for final action.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we have two items that are on the agenda that are airport related and they involve grants. And we have a local share in both of these, I believe. Do we have an airport fund that funds the local share? Where in our budget is the local share for the airport grants come from?
Well, we do have
an airport fund, and it is primarily funded through the sale of property and as well as the lease payments at the Air Industrial Park.
Okay.
However, in this particular case, the local share is higher than normal because there is some non-eligible federal funded, non-federal eligible work that needs to be done behind our corporate hangar. What Kathy and Mead and Hunt have done is to combine that with this federal grant contract so we can have it all done at once. And what Kathy and Ms. Hepting have done is work together to find the funds in the Public Improvement Fund to pick up that share of this particular project, which is roughly 137, 140, somewhere around there.
And I thought, having been involved with these airport grants before, I thought it was interesting that we could use that, instead of a cash contribution to the whole grant, use our funding of ineligible improvements as the match. I haven't seen that done before.
The reason for that is because, as Bill just said, that portion of the corporate aircraft hangar is not eligible because it's not considered public use for that. So what we agreed with, as Bill said, with the Office of Aeronautics, is that to make it one solid project so that we will get the FAA specs, that we will get the Mead and Hunt administrative construction so that it's done right, the packing and all that stuff is done right. They've agreed to do it as one package, and then we just pay our portion of the corporate hangar, as Bill said. So they've agreed to do it as one package and one construction project, which is very nice for us.
Yeah, I congratulate you on that.
Because we'll get a much nicer, first of all, we got a cheaper bid, came in lower, and we'll get a much nicer project with it, so, in the end.
I wish I would have thought about that in
Well, I'm
my
not
past.
sure, I'm not sure whoever does the paperwork on that end is real happy, but they agreed to it, so.
Well, congratulations.
Kathy, clarify something I had said at a previous meeting. I had said it was a 90%, 10%, but it is
It's 95 and 5.
5. So 90% federal, 5% state, 5% local. I previously misspoke at a previous meeting on the grant.
2 years ago, we did have a project that was 10%, and that's what you were referring to, but
Previous, it was 95,
Yes,
2.5, 2.5. So, you know, now we've got to make another 2.5% on a lot of these. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but these airports can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars on some of these, and you'll probably see that in some of these things, so. Thank you.
So again, I apologize again for this being last minute. Typically, the FAA transfers funding to the Office of Aeronautics mid-August, and they just transferred several airports, not only yours, a week ago. So these contracts are a little bit of a rush, and I apologize for that, so that's why I'm asking for final action tonight.
Okay, any other questions for Kathy?
I'll make the motion, Howard.
Okay, the motion is
Final
made by
action.
Commissioner
I
Bush.
think I made the motion, but there was not a second.
I support
All right, I'll second.
Okay, it's been made, motion has already been made and second for final action. Because there's money involved, could I have Mr. Clerk taking the roll?
Commissioner Tamian.
Yes.
Commissioner Riley.
Yes.
Commissioner Greatham.
Yes.
Commissioner Bone.
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Chairman Heidemann.
Yes. Okay, next is the Air Industrial Park Taxi Street and Corporate Hangar Ramp Rehabilitation Construction Contract. Again, this too is for final action.
I move this item be given final action and approved this evening.
I'd support that.
Supported by Commissioner Riley. Any discussion or questions for Kathy regarding this one? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, could we have the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Riley.
Yes.
Commissioner Greatham.
Yes.
Commissioner Tamian.
Yes.
Commissioner Bone.
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell. Yes. Chairman Heidemann.
Yes. Thank you, Kathy.
Commissioner Heidemann, I have one more. It's letter J on the end of the list there. There again, I apologize because this was the last minute. This came in yesterday. So if you'd like to do it while I'm up here, or I can.
Yeah, we can do it, Howard.
Yep,
go with that.
This is a sponsor
As long as they
contract.
don't overrule the chair. Go ahead.
This is a sponsor contract for the project itself. It's a general sponsor contract like we've had in the past.
I'll move this contract be approved and as final action.
Supported by Commissioner Greathop. Any other questions for Commissioner Greathop?
Kathy, I apologize, I don't have your packet in front of me, it came in late, so I
It
don't
did.
have it in front of me right now, but when I read through it online earlier, there was one spot in there where I was looking at the columns, and I was looking at the 95 and 5, and there was one in there about a third from the top, if I remember correctly, where the state was not putting in an equal amount. We were putting in something, and the state was not putting in something. The feds were and we were. What would bring about a situation where we put in money and the state did not?
The federal, if you're talking about page 4 here, the federal share was the 445,000.
Right.
The state share was 25,000. Our share is the 150,000 because of the corporate hangar, and then the 32 that would be our local share of the total project of $600,000. So the state is putting in $25,000.
They're putting in 25, we're putting in 25, but we're putting in an additional amount because it's not, or it's.
Because it's not federally eligible. Which, to be honest with you, I've worked here for 19 years, and this is the first time that we've not been federally eligible for anything. It's actually a shock to us when we were told that. But it is because they're saying that that corporate hangar is for public,
That was the only
is for
question I had.
public use.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, would you call roll on that?
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
Commissioner Greathop?
Yes.
Commissioner Tommy?
Yes.
Chairman Hyman?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. At this time, we have some requests from Park and Rec for park picnic tables and grill purchases.
Make a motion to
Director
send that on to the board.
be sent on to the full board.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Greathop and supported. Any questions that you'd like to direct to Mark regarding this? Seeing none? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The park truck purchase.
Make a motion that we send this to the full board for approval.
Support.
It's been a motion made by to send this on to the full board. I gotta find the truck here. This is a $26,850.75. This is with My Michigan.
Yes.
My deal.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Any questions? Yes.
Mark, I see you're heading up that way. I noticed this truck has like 85,000 miles on it. Is that considered worn out? I mean, 85,000 anymore seems like a low mileage vehicle.
Well, the problem is our vehicles are used for very short trips, because most of the trips are intra-park. They don't, so they aren't on the highway where it's the easiest miles on your, equipment. It's short trips, and that most fleets turn them over regularly, so you don't. So we get such a good deal on buying into the equipment. It's better to rotate them out proactively rather than start fixing them extensively.
What do you do with the old one now?
We haven't decided yet. I'll be coming back with you with a staffing proposal that might affect the use of that, need to keep that truck. So if not, we put it in the county auction.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move this on to the full board for final action. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now the Columbus White Barn Electric Service.
As you may or may not know, the White Barn, which sits right on Bauman Road at Columbus County Park, originally was leased to the Columbus Township Board, who wanted to preserve it as an architectural icon. about a year and a half ago, they decided that, you know, they didn't have any ongoing use for it, and they were happy to have paid for the restoration of the building, but gave it back to us and said, you know, you guys use it. At the same time, we have a white pole barn, or a small metal pole barn at our Croner Road house where we run our maintenance operations that's literally falling down. So over the last year, we've been systematically working to moving our maintenance and storage in from Croner Road into that white barn. Last year, we poured cement floors and took care of some structural issues. This year, we want to bring electricity into the building. The former electrical system actually caught fire, and the Richmond Fire Department saved the building. So there's actually no active electrical in the building. So they'll bring electricity from our service panel that services the entrance and the front end of the park, and connect it in and do basic code work to make it usable as a commercial garage.
Any other questions for Mark? Seeing none, call the question for final action at the regular board meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Hold on, we need
I made that motion.
We didn't make a
You
motion.
didn't make the motion?
No,
I'll
I'm not
second.
sure,
Okay.
I'm not sure it's fine.
Now you should call it out.
No, I did not ask for final action.
Okay.
This will be sent on to the regular board meeting for final action. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Mark. The Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant, you want that for final action?
Yes, that's the one we need for final action.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be shocked and surprised that the state of Michigan gave us a very short turnaround to react to final adjustments to our grant, so that's why we're asking for final action. Last spring, you approved the submission of these two applications, and we got our preliminary scores back, and based on those preliminary scores, we are providing some additional information that will give us some additional points. And then based on the preliminary scores and discussions I've had with the grant coordinator, it looks like we would be to our benefit to increase our local match for the two projects, and that's what I'm specifically, the resolutions address. So we're asking to increase the grant application for the Pine River grant, which is the property next to Goodo's County Park, from a 26% match to a 50% match to boost that score, and to increase the local match on the Bell River grant, which is adjacent to Columbus County Park, from 26% to 30%. Now you may ask, why the difference? It's because of their relative score in the rankings and the possibility of getting funding. One of the items that the Trust Fund Board has done in the past is taken all grant applications under $100,000 and automatically funded. So the Bell River project has a good chance of that happening again. Not guaranteed, but a very good chance. Both of these properties are being held by third parties. The Bell River property is owned and being held by the Blue Water Land Fund of the Community Foundation, and the Pine River property is being held by the Six Rivers Land Conservancy. Both of them are holding it until we get this cycle of grants, which the decision will be made in December. If they're funded, we wait for the grant timeline to get that done. If we don't get a grant, we buy the property with 100% our own money.
I don't think we need a roll call on this, I think just a call for the vote.
Well, there's a resolution, so I think Jay needs a roll call.
We can have a roll call. I'll call for roll call.
We'll have a motion.
Yeah, no motion.
I'll move that this resolution 2015-23 be approved.
I think it's got to be final action.
And this evening for final action.
I'll support.
Okay. All in favor? No.
Yeah, no.
Call roll. I'm sorry.
That's it. Commissioner McConnell? Yes. Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
Commissioner Greatop?
Yes.
Commissioner Bohm?
Yes.
Commissioner Tamian?
Yes.
Chairman Heidemann?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
If I could give a very brief update, the grants that were awarded last year, We have made an offer to purchase to Atchison Ventures for the 2 acres on the Blue Water Riverwalk. Donna Neester has signed and accepted that offer to purchase, and Mr. Fletcher is in the process of drafting a purchase agreement for your action next month. The other item is we made an offer to purchase to Mr. Stilson, the Stilson property in the North Channel. I hand-delivered it to him, have gotten no official response from him. So he's been told that if we don't get a response, then we'll start talking to the Bouvier Bay owners, the Lupinski family, and I understand your wishes in that regard, so.
Any questions for Mark?
We still need to make a motion for 15-24 too, don't we?
Yes, there's 2 different
There was
resolutions.
two, 1523 was for Bell River, so I would make a motion that we approve 1524
Okay, for Pine River.
for the Pine River.
Final action.
For final action.
Yes, for final action.
Commissioner,
Take the roll.
Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
Commissioner Tamian,
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman,
Yes.
Commissioner Greatop,
Yes.
Chairman Hyden.
Yes. Okay, now I think we're ready for Matt. The landfill truck scale recommendation.
Good evening. This is the probably the only time you'll see me recommending a truck scale replacement during my tenure with you at the county. This is a purchase that will provide for weighing of our landfill trucks coming in. Our current scale, as my memorandum notes, is about 16 years old. And is badly in need of replacement. We spent quite a bit of money over the last couple winters keeping it functional. Winters are especially hard with blowing snow and ice forming in the scale. And it's time to have it replaced. So we developed a bid package and posted it on Mitten in July. A solicitation for full replacement of our truck scale. And we received 1 respondent to that RFP. There are a couple of reasons for that, which I noted in this memorandum, which we can discuss if you'd like. But in generally, we'll be completely demolishing the existing scale and its foundation, regrading, rebuilding a foundation for a new scale, installing a new scale. And while that work is going on, we will have a temporary scale set up on the opposite side of our scale house for all of our commercial truck traffic. In fact, the commercial scale is the same model as the one we're installing, but it's a steel deck as versus a concrete pour deck. And there's some paving of approaches associated with the new scale. We're approaching the time we'll have to do some large-scale asphalt replacement at the landfill. But for the approaches for this scale are badly in need of being redone, and as part of this project. The scale in particular that was spec'd and is hoping to be installed with your approval is a Fairbanks model scale, the Talon High Vehicle Extreme HVX. This is the same scale that Waste Management installs throughout Michigan and other parts of the Midwest at their landfills. This is the same scale that is installed at many, many truck stops across North America, precisely because it provides reliability and a long life and accurate weighing. The original bid price, received at the time of bid opening was $273,000. I'm rounding up there. And upon reviewing the bid items in that bid, the engineers and I felt that a number of items were way too expensive. Specifically, items related not so much to the scale and the general site work, the excavation, the soils work and that, but the concrete work. both the foundation and the approaches. We sat down with Fairbanks because we had a little bit of time, and we asked them to come in, explain to us what was in those bid items. Where did your numbers come from? Break it down for us. And when we went through that process, we found there were a number of things that were either misinterpreted by Fairbanks from our bid specifications, or they had put in, so we clarified those items. Specifically, a couple were they put in for money for obtaining building permits, which we're exempt from on the county property when we do construction. They had provided for a separate full-time safety officer to be on site during the entire construction. That's a role that typically is fulfilled by the foreman on the job. And the nature of what we're doing, aside from the overhead crane work, is not too relatively dangerous, I guess I should say. So we clarified those items. They also had misestimated quantities on a little bit of retaining wall as part of the project we have to build around the scale. And so we clarified that and got a $10,000 reduction. After we went through the back and forth and the clarification, and they re-looked at their numbers and they sharpened their pencil, the total price was reduced by about $30,000. We were able to bring them from 272 or 273 down to about 242,600. The specific number is there on the second page of the memorandum, $242,597.73. Now that number provides for 3 months of scale rental. We're fairly confident, if the weather is not bad, that we'll be able to do the project within a 60-day period and only use 2 months of that rental. That would save us about $6,700 off the contract. Secondly, some of the other items built, some of the costs built into the concrete work accounts for providing winter protection, heating blankets, tents, heaters if needed, to help the concrete cure if the weather takes a really bad turn between now, well, primarily November, when most of that work will be done. Again, unless the temperature dips way down and we get into a very cold spell, we won't need to utilize all of those winter protection items that have been provided for in the contract. So that would be potentially a deduct off of the contract if everything goes as planned as is hoped. So we feel that after we went to the table and came back, the pricing that was brought back by Fairbanks Scales to do the entire project was in line with our engineering estimate, within about 5%. They're a little higher than the engineering estimate, but within reason. So we're fairly satisfied with the number we have. So I'm asking for your recommendation to the full board for approval of Fairbanks Scales as the contractor to do this work.
I would entertain a motion. Commissioner Grayton?
I'll make a motion, but then I have a question.
Sure.
For final action.
Is it for final action tonight?
No, I don't need final action this
Oh, you
evening.
don't?
No.
All right. I'll just make a motion to send it to the full board.
I will support that motion, and I'll have a question also.
Okay. Go ahead.
Man,
Commissioner Grayton.
I've been out to your place a few times, and I know how the operation works when you move in on the right-hand side of your building.
Correct.
If you're going to be coming in on the left-hand side of your building, how are you going to facilitate the operations inside that building then?
Here's the plan for the temporary scale. You know where the residential truck traffic comes in on the opposite side,
Right.
you know, the pickup trucks, the cars, the trailers. That corridor will remain just as it is today. Those people will be serviced by an attendant within the scale house building as we have it now, so that piece won't change. What will happen is the temporary scale will sit immediately adjacent to that, more or less in the middle of the large asphalt area to the west of the scale house. So we're going to have a lot of traffic barriers guiding the commercial traffic up and onto that truck scale. We have a small shed that we are preparing for a second attendant to be in to service the commercial truck traffic. Since all the drivers drive on the left side, your window needs to be right there, so no one has to get out of their building or their truck to do the transaction. So we're going to establish that the first week, hopefully the first week of work, the week of the 19th, we'll be getting that all set up. Fairbanks will be coming, getting that scale installed, we'll set up the shed, we'll get all the communications, the printers, and all that worked out, so we're ready to go by the end, I guess it would be October 24th. And at that point, once everything's set up, we'll transition all the commercial trucks there, and then we can begin the demolition on the existing scale.
All right. Our next meeting is the 15th. Our final action meeting will be on the 15th. That gives you enough time to get everything done then.
Yes.
Commissioner Tomlin.
Is this project in the budget for this year?
Yes, it's part of the capital improvement program. I've had it on there for, I think, 3 years now. Yes.
Why are we constructing it so late in the year if we have concerns about the temperature in the concrete? Why didn't we try and construct it during the summer months?
Well, quite honestly, it took a bit of time. That's a good question. We could have potentially have done this earlier in the year, and perhaps we should have. That being said, the company who's doing the project does these a lot, and they have it, from what I understand, they have it down to a T. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Part of the delay was, I hope it had been in front of you last month. We actually extended the bid for a month so that Fairbanks and other bidders could have more time to fine-tune their numbers. As it turns out, they didn't end up where we wanted them anyway, which is disappointing. But we did finally get there. We actually had hoped to have started this in September. Unfortunately, it's in October. I didn't want a bid to come in that was over $300,000. It was really out of whack, and either decide to scrap the whole thing or do substantial back and forth. So that's partially the reason why. The other part is that we did quite a bit of research between the different scale companies and the different scale options out there, and opted to specify this particular scale because of its durability and reliability and extended life. The scale I've got spec'd and we're hoping to have installed has about a 25+ year lifespan. There's your standard scales of similar construction where the companies are about a 15 to 20 year lifespan. So we're spending a little bit more on the product itself, on the order of $15,000, but it should last us a solid 10 years longer than the competitor.
Thank you.
So, Commissioner Riley.
Did you get that fuel line worked out?
Yes, that's all been taken care of. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're all tapped in and rerouted and no issues.
Okay, so you're not going to be unserviced?
No.
Okay.
We're up and going.
Very good.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll move this on to the full board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, the Smiths Creek Landfill Activities Report.
Mr. Chairman.
I would entertain a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Support. Moved and supported. Any discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Other environmental and public works matters? Seeing none, no information only. I'd entertain a motion to receive and file packets concerning environmental public works matters.
So moved.
Moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the Ways and Means Committee meeting of October 1st. Mr. Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Tamian.
Here.
Commissioner Heidemann.
Here.
Commissioner McConnell.
Here.
Commissioner Riley.
Here.
Commissioner Bowman.
Here.
Chairman Greatop.
Here. Any additions or deletions? to the agenda?
I guess I should move that we delete item 7E, which we've already dealt with earlier this evening.
Anything else? Need a motion then?
I would second that.
Support? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I move the approval of the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion and support? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Any citizens wishing to address the Ways and Means Committee tonight? None? Updates, Board of Commissioners appointments?
Actually, I have that. I talked a little bit about it at the last meeting. You guys have a document that's in front of you here that I distributed to everybody. I got to give the gals in the office a lot of credit for putting this together. I think what happens a lot of times with these committee assignments is people start attending meetings somewhere along the line. They assume that commissioners have to go to these particular meetings and so on and so forth. So we went through and took a comprehensive look at what is statutory, what is, you know, by resolution, member of understanding agreement, what is by bylaws and policy, and which ones are liaison only. If you look at the left-hand side of the column, you'll see the S and the R's and the B's and the L's. A lot of the liaison-only ones, we appoint different people to be part of those boards, and those people, you know, ultimately are to report back to you as a commissioner. I know a lot of commissioners attend those particular meetings. I'm not going to tell commissioners that they don't have to, but a lot of commissioners or commissioners don't have any voting authority on those particular boards. So I don't know what the board's flavor is on this. This is the first time. Howard, you've been here longer than I have. We've never taken a comprehensive look at these to say which ones essentially do we have to attend and which ones do we not have to attend. There's 35 on this particular list, and many of you know we go to a lot of other meetings outside those types of things. So I'm just want to get some discussion as to how the board would want to move forward on it. To me, different commissioners, you know which ones, everybody attends a lot of different meetings. If you don't have a voting right and you want to have somebody on that particular board to keep you posted, everybody, we get the minutes of these meetings. So I don't know how you, Carl?
I'm one of the people that raised the question about this, and my question came about as the new Human Service Chair. I was attending the which one is it? It's the
agency.
No, it's the Department of Human Services. Department of Human Services, and what I found out first, I attend the meetings. Commissioner Riley's been on that board before, and when I came, they would ask for a motion on a resolution, and everybody was looking around, so I made the motion, and we went down the road for a while. And then one of their staff people brought up the point that, you know, that's not proper because I don't have that authority. And so I thought that was interesting. And then that raised the question in my mind. Here we are voting to appoint people to represent the commission. They're on this board, and they vote, and then I'm supposed to go to the meeting and sit there and watch them. You know, I think it's a little bit of waste of our time. And when I first broached this with some members of the staff, I've worked in other counties, not for the counties, and there was a change here where we adopted this sort of committee format where we have meeting of the whole, where everybody participates in each committee, and it's all public. And these commission assignments were really part of the county's governance when there were separate committee meetings that occurred every month. And I think some of these appointments came about, you know, with the desire to improve communication between the commissioners. Well, now that we have meetings of the whole, where we're all present, we can all discuss every issue at both the committee level and the final board level. I think some of these appointments are unnecessary, and I think under our bylaws, it's our chairman's role to appoint people to committees, and I think this is something that Jeff should take another look at on our behalf.
Yeah, what my intention of this is to review this. If they are liaison only and you don't have a voting right, you as a commissioner, you're going to oversee the people that are appointed to those boards. If you'd like to attend the meetings, you're still more than welcome to attend the meetings, as you are welcome to attend any of the meetings here. But I am not going to, I guess, make it mandatory. Why would I make it mandatory that commissioners or request a commissioner to attend a meeting when they don't have a voting right and they already have a people appointed to that particular committee? Now, there again, a discussion on the board, whatever way you want to go with it, I'll be more than happy to, you know, give 12 assignments to Howard because I don't like them and make him go.
I'm still waiting for some type of funding or pay for being sergeant of arms, but I'll bring that up at another day. I would say this, in some counties where commissioners are on various committees, either statutory or the other word I think is used is resolution, where we're doing voting. They actually pay a per diem to those commissioners in addition to their salary. And so I think that might be one way of handling this situation. I think St. Clair County used to do that, and why they went away from it, I'm not quite sure, but that would have been before my time.
Anybody else have any other things? I just kind of wanted to say that I tend to agree with Carl. I know how busy you can be. Some days you don't have a lot going in. Other days you work from 6 till 9 at night or 7 till 9 at night. It just depends on what's going on. And if you're trying to run all over this county and make a meeting where you really don't have any input, you don't have a voice, you don't have a vote, I again don't see the reason to attend those meetings. I certainly think it would be in our best interest, though, to touch base with the people on that committee, let them know the situation. For example, I sit on the Veterans Board, and I don't have a vote on that board. And I try to get there. They're 20-minute meetings. I have to drive 54 miles round trip to do it, and I don't have a vote, and I don't have a say in it, and I don't get mileage for doing that. But I try to get there when I can. But I've made a contact with Chris and with Dan, the chairman, Dan Lane, and I've explained to them I can't make all those meetings, but if there's something that you need from me, get in touch with me. If you need me at a meeting, let me know, and I'll make every effort to get there. So that's kind of the arrangement that I've made with them, and I think it's working out very well. I read their minutes, and I study their minutes, so I know what's going on, and I keep it that way. I pop in and see Chris when I'm down here, but it doesn't compel me to make every single one of those meetings, and I find that, and I think that's probably what you're thinking, Carl, and I think, Jeff, you're on the same page.
Yeah, and I actually had a nice discussion with Deb Johnson, the community mental health director here last week. I chatted with her about it, and she didn't have any issue with you know, commissioners quote unquote not attending. We still get their information, those types of things. I've just like I said, I know how these things happen over time. It's just because it's the way we did it 11 years ago, and this is you know, first time that we've taken really taken a look at it in this depth. Howard, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been here longer than I have. We haven't, I think, ever looked at these to this level of what we have to attend. I would be a proponent of if you're serving in a liaison-only capacity, there again, you can go to the meetings, but I would like to take those committees that are liaison-only and not have commissioners perhaps assigned to them, but not require that commissioners attend those. That's kind of the direction I was looking for.
I guess the other component of this that I think as chair be worthwhile to look at is some of the, if you look at a list of all the assignments we have, it looks pretty balanced. But if you look at the number of times they meet or where they meet, there are some people like yours truly that has 2 meetings a month in Detroit and 1 in Flint. And it takes quite a bit of time to, I have sympathy for Mr. Greatop, you know, coming from the south end of the county to the north end, but those of us that have monthly meetings, you know, considerable distance away, I think that when you're making the appointments, you should try and balance the amount of time that commissioners need to pay to it. I'm not really a proponent of it. I'm not asking for any more compensation. I'm just suggesting.
So the flavor would be to go back to review these committee appointments, perhaps remove some and maybe realign some of the different assignments. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that consistent?
Yes, sir.
Howard wants more money, but Howard, are you good with
What I was suggesting was that some counties do handle it that way.
Yeah, no, I know.
And, you know, that might be an option for us, especially those where you're a voting member.
I think the per diem, if I'm not mistaken, I think some of the people that sit on these particular boards, hence that we appoint to the board as our representative, I think they receive per diems for quite a bit.
Usually it's
so.
$30.
Okay.
I'd
Well-
like to add one more thing, if I may, since Howard brought up the per diem thing. Before we ever gave ourselves a per diem for doing something like that, I would rather send this to administration, and I would rather find out why we don't pay some of our volunteer citizens per diems. For example, if you sit on Parks and Recs and some of the other boards, you get a $30 per diem for attending every meeting as a volunteer citizen. If you sit on the Brownfield Committee, you do not get one. And I was not able to find a rhyme or reason for that. Before we ever did that for ourselves, I would rather find out why we don't have that done, and straighten out those committees so that everybody that works for the county, we get a salary. Those people that volunteer their time and drive up from wherever they drive would get at least a $30 per diem like everybody else did. So I'm not sure why that is like it is, but there are some committees you sit on that get the per diem and some other committees that don't get the per diem.
That's a good point.
Can you do a little more homework on that for us, Bill? And the rhyme and reason on it? Okay. This isn't an action item, I just wanted to bring this up and,
Very
you know,
good. Good conversation, guys. Anybody else want to add to? If not, then we'll move on conceptual initiatives. I don't see anything, and I'm not getting an eyeball from the boss over there. No old business, new business. Item 7A, Board of Canvassers appointments.
I'd make the motion.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and support to send this down to the full board. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item 7B is the courthouse parking lot lighting program that is for final action. If you have questions, I see that we have maintenance supervisor, director. Ron, what's your title? Close enough, all right. We have Ron Marsh in the audience if we have any questions.
I just have a quick question for you. I guess. On the LEDs, the payback, ironically, I just changed all my lights out in one of my fitness centers and went to LEDs. Amazing how much less power they use, and literally the payback for me on is 6 or 7 months on these things. They were retrofit, yeah, big time. And estimated payback on these?
Well, the real driving force was the aging infrastructure that we have at the courthouse.
Okay.
All of the underground is failing, and we've just made numerous attempts to try to do it. When we went out to bid for a private vendor, it was 3 times as much to have DTE come in and use DTE's streetlight division.
Yeah.
We on the heels of the LED retrofit at the health department, we reduced our bill there 75%. So say, I think it went from 540 something to 119.
Yeah, no.
So there's a huge savings.
Okay. Good enough.
Any other questions? Anything else you want to add, Ron?
I appreciate you taking a look at this for final action. DTE has allowed us to extend their deadline. It was September 30th to get that in this year's budget and this year's project list. So my apologies for the late final action.
In support of what Ron is saying there, I've worked with DTE before, and if they're willing to start moving on something, they probably want to go right away because
I would so move for final action.
rescheduling is tough.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion to support. Any other questions or discussions? All, we better do the roll call.
Commissioner Tamian?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidemann?
Yes.
Commissioner McConnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
Commissioner Bohm?
Yes.
Chairman Greatop?
Yes. Item C is seasonal snow and salting services. Again, Ron is here if you have questions about this particular project. They were the vendors from last year.
Correct. We've used them for the last 4 years. And they were the only ones that came in through the bid process to offer a seasonal, all sites covered proposal.
If I'm not mistaken, just kind of talking out loud here, it seems to me that last year or the year before, he was the vendor, and we were forced to go out for bids, and he came in with a higher bid, what would have done it for last year's bid. He came in with a higher bid and was still low bidder.
Unfortunately, yes.
So-
The county's purchasing policies require us to go out for bid every 3 years for that process.
That time rolled around and it cost us some money to go out for bids, but in any event,
This year it saved us. We weren't up for our 3-year purchasing policy requirement, but when he gave us our annual rate this year, it had increased 75% due to the salt prices. So we met with him and we got it down again. And then we did go out for the full bid process, and it reduced it significantly.
I make a motion, we send to the board for final approval.
Second?
it's been moved and supported for final, no, this is not final action, it's going to the full board. Okay, any questions, discussions? Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ron. Item D is the Marysville Truck and Auto Contract Amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that this item be forwarded to the full board meeting later this month for approval.
Second?
A motion and support. Any questions, gentlemen? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item E has been removed. Are there any other ways and means matters?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Tamian.
we had a delegation of county representatives in Lansing this week to talk to State Treasury about some tax tribunal concerns that we have, and perhaps our administrator could update the entire board on the issue and what's transpired.
Bill, is that in your report, or do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it in your report?
I can do it now.
Okay.
Fine. As Commissioner Tamian mentioned, we met with the state treasurer, it was Wednesday of this week. Our lobbyists arranged for that meeting. Along with the state treasurer being in the meeting, the executive assistant to the State Tax Commission joined us as well. From the county side, there were two commissioners, Commissioner Tamian and Heidemann, and Greg Hill, the county's equalization director. And Greg is really our local expert on this subject. In fact, the day before, he had met with his peers from all of Southeast Michigan, all those counties, as well as a number of people from the State Tax Commission and the Treasurer's Office to talk about some of these exact same issues. So they know him well. That certainly helped us when we met with them. The Treasurer, let me back up and give you a little background information about the issue here. Is across the nation, and increasingly so in Michigan and now in St. Clair County, we're seeing certain types of land uses, primarily big box retailers and specialty build-to-suit commercial and retailers that are appealing their tax valuation, claiming that their building is unique, cannot be reused, and if the building they are in goes dark, and then it cannot have any value because it cannot be reused. They are also appealing their values on their existing buildings, the building they are in, with the State Tax Commission, saying that all of these other dark buildings within the community that are also build-to-suit buildings, such as, a building we've got here in St. Clair County is the old Kmart facility out in Port Huron Township. That is a big box that is currently dark. So what will happen is other big boxes will say, when you determine what the value of my property is and my building, you've also got to take in consideration the value of that dark building that's currently not being used. As a result, we're seeing that many of the property values of the state tax tribunal is reducing the value of some of these buildings. One of the examples that we used was a CVS building in a community at the south end of the county. As a result of what happened in that particular community, their downtown development authority had to fold. They had no more revenue that was available. They couldn't continue making any public investments within the downtown to try and strengthen the downtown. In that case, the building's original value was set at $743,000. The property sold a few years later for $2.8 million. About 3 years later, they went to the tax tribunal and asked that their value be dropped to $585,000. The tax tribunal approved it. In 2012, they petitioned for yet another reduction in their value and dropped it from $585,000 to $390,000. That exact same year that they dropped it to $390,000, the tax tribunal did, the property sold, and it sold for $3.8 million. So there's some concern on the part of elected officials as well as taxing jurisdictions that the process as established through the tax tribunal is being abused. And they have asked the state legislators to take a look at this issue and have suggested that they use some legislation that has been successful to equalize or create a fair environment. That was done in Indiana, that piece of legislation, and one of the reasons we are concerned here is for, say, the residential type properties within the county. When a property goes bankrupt or is foreclosed and there's a forced sale as a result, and you start establishing the value of properties within the neighborhood, you have to specifically remove those vacant, foreclosed, bankrupt residential properties from establishing the value for active. Well, you do just the opposite for certain commercial and retail. So there's some concern about fairness in taxation that exists there. So that was one of the issues we met with the state treasurer about. Earlier this week on Monday, legislation was introduced both in the House and in the Senate that will address this. Those pieces of legislation are based largely on what was done in Indiana that seemed to be successful there. It's been referred to committee. We shared the impact that this has had on St. Clair County with the treasurer, also shared with him what we thought the impact will be in the coming years. The treasurer advised us that his biggest concern and what their focus will be is on constitutional taxation matters. That's what his primary concern is. And that really gets to how do you assess, or pardon me, how do you create that value for that piece of property? What are the equalization directors or the assessors, the local assessors doing? How is that different from what the tax tribunal is doing when they review these cases? And what does the Constitution as well as legal cases say that you can and cannot do? That is his primary concern, and he made it perfectly clear to us that's what he is going to focus on. Some of the Peripheral issues that affect our communities deal with deed restrictions and reuses of that building, blight issues that are associated with buildings that, due to deed restrictions, may have to be left unused or closed. And there are certainly issues with tax tribunal and the interpretation of some of the appraisals that are done. Those are issues that he feels are important, but they're not issues that he can deal with. They may be issues that are land use issues or zoning issues that have to be dealt with, or other types of issues. So he was certainly sympathetic to our concerns, but he made it perfectly clear to us that his primary concern is the constitutional question related to taxation of real property. So overall, I think it was a useful meeting. Anytime you can get your face in front of a cabinet member and let them know what our concerns are. We know that he's got the ear of the governor and his staff, so I'm certain that the documentation we shared with him will be shared with others as well.
On the deed restriction piece, it's to give you an example of what happened in the county here. I sit on the land bank committee. We had a piece of property over on 32nd Street by Kmart, which is now vacant, but over there by Kmart. And there were deed restrictions on that property over there that no business could go in there that competed with Kmart in any way. Well, trying to get rid of that property, get it back on the tax rolls was a difficult situation. Jay sits on that committee with me, and we ended up with a vet that wanted to go in there and put in a veterinary business, which did not compete, and everything was on the go until we found out that the vet wanted to sell some dog food and some dog collars and a few things like that, which was a violation of the deed restriction. And as it turned out, he pulled out, went somewhere else, and we didn't get that property back on the tax rolls, which was our goal at the time. Well, now that that is closed, and I don't know the answer to this, maybe somebody does, now that that Kmart is closed, are those deed restrictions still in place?
If I can I add something just to that?
Sure, go ahead.
One of the things that we were concerned about was the fact that Kmart's no longer even the owner of the property. They don't even own the property anymore, but yet the deed restriction still exists. So, you know, who would be the party that would take the action against someone who is in violation of that deed restriction? It could still be Kmart, I guess, right? They could theoretically still come back and make a claim that...
No, they can't.
That's what we asked, right?
Yeah, the owner of a piece of property. So what you could do is you could get, let's say it's a gas station on one side of the street, and they buy the parcel on the other side, and as the owner, they deed restrict it so they can't have competition there. Once they leave, that's there to protect them, whoever the owner of the parcel is, like Kmart. Once they're gone and they don't own it anymore, the owner of that property, unless it's to protect somebody else, can eliminate those deed restrictions, period. No question about it. I've done it before.
Commissioner Tommy, did you have anything else?
I just, I'm glad that we're pursuing this, and I have to say that I was very impressed with our lobbyists. I mean, to be able to set up a meeting for us to sit down with the state treasurer and top staff there and get a chance for us to present our arguments, and the example that Bill used in the southern part of the county I'm very familiar with, that really did have made an impression on him. He, you know, when you reduce the value to a few $100,000 and in the same year it sells for $4 million, there's something definitely wrong, and that had an impact.
And I mentioned this to you guys once before, I think. But in Clay Township right now, they're building a Tom O'Reilly's Auto Park, something like that, I think. And it's not even up yet, and they're already appealing their taxes. So they're doing it before they're even done now. I mean, they got their attorneys in place and they're moving. Gary?
Yeah, just, you know, a lot of this, I think it's, well, it doesn't get blown out of proportion, it's a mess. But what you end up with is these small jurisdictions are completely outgunned in these proceedings. And I'll give you an example. I handled 2 appeals of the Meyer Marysville store. Excellent results, very little reduction. So then they appealed again. So I go to the pre-hearing, and the judge said, well, is this really your number? I said, well, I wouldn't have written it down if it wasn't. I mean, yeah, that's our number. Well, how can you do that? I said, how can I? I mean, we've had these cases before, and we got prevailed with these values. I mean, why wouldn't we? He goes, well, there was a decision we just rendered in a case in a small township. I can't remember what township it was. It was up near Traverse City somewhere, and it's 60% lower than your numbers. And I said, I don't care. I didn't try that case. I don't know who their appraiser was. What's that got to do with us? He said, well, that's what we determined they're worth because of this. They call it functional obsolescence. So the theory is, if that Meijer goes dark and Kmart says we're going to buy it because we're going to put a Kmart there, they got to rip it all apart to make it look like a Kmart store. So you deduct all that cost from the value of the store. And what happened is it was the lead guy at Honigman, who we tried those power plant cases against him, and it turned out fairly well for us. I mean, as well as it could given the circumstances. And they are very good at what they do. And they have appraisers that they regularly use, and they wax this guy up there. He'd never tried a tax tribunal case again. And so what happens is these little townships, and trust me, it's not by mistake that the first one up in the batting order is some outgunned small township that doesn't have the money to hire a high-quality appraiser, maybe has an attorney who's never tried a case like this before. Then all of a sudden that becomes the precedent to pound the tar out of everybody else. It's really a messed up system. I think actually the case downriver, I think, because Greg called me about it, they lost by default because they didn't get an evaluation on time. In other words, they didn't know what it meant, so they submitted the assessor's valuation, and valuation disclosure doesn't mean that you share figures. It means you have to have it supported by an appraisal. And it's, so the bottom line is these big corporations can afford to hire really highly qualified people. And you think about it, if you got some guy handling 27 Meijer stores, well, he's going to have the same pleadings, the same case, the same appraiser, whatever. And it's kind of a cookie cutter thing, and they just pick them off right and left. And it gave me fits down in Marysville because they kept pounding me with a case from Acme Township or something that had nothing to do with what we were talking about. But we were going to have to wear the mess that somebody else created. And it really, there needs to be, in my opinion, because the state takes the biggest hit on this stuff. So there needs to be, by legislation, a pool of money and a system of appraisal where the playing field gets leveled for these small jurisdictions against these big corporations, so that appraisers and talent and that kind of stuff, both sides at least have a halfway level playing field. That's my opinion.
That was a point we made, that the state is taking the big hit on this. They're the ones that should be in the driver's seat, not some township.
Exactly.
You know, and the other thing that I thought was kind of significant, and you pointed this out, CBS is a national thing. If we think this is just happening in Michigan, we're totally wrong. This is happening all over the United States. Now, some states, Indiana in particular, they've already moved to deal with the issue. I didn't get the feeling that the treasurer of the state of Michigan was quite there yet. And I don't think he felt, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he felt that the legislation being moved in the House and Senate would really address the problem.
It might not.
He was receptive, though, to the deed restriction issue. That, you know, if they put deed restrictions on this, so that essentially it's going to stay dark and the value goes down, would have some issues.
The one other positive comment that he made is he is sensitive to what's happening to local government revenue and to school district revenue because of these cases. And he knows that's creating problems across the state. You know, Detroit's bankrupt, other communities have emergency managers. There are many school districts that are on a list. And some of this is being caused by inequitable taxation, where certain classes of property are getting better valuations or unfair valuations compared to those that we're paying as residential property owners.
Very good. Any more discussion? Commissioner Heide.
I would just say, I was quite impressed with the state treasurer. I thought he was really upfront, laid it right on the line with us. There was no dilly-dallying around. He got right to the specifics. I'm very impressed with him, as well as our lobbying firm.
Commissioner O'Reilly?
Yeah, I have nothing to do with that building either. But only comment I would make is I think it says a lot about this board. You know, a lot of areas are sitting back, not doing anything, not looking at it. And this board took the opportunity to reach out and say, hey, what can we do about this? And they step forward. Whether we win or lose, but at least we're doing something to say, hey, we're paying attention, rather than sitting back and letting everybody walk on you. I think that says a lot for the board that involved here.
Very good. Any other ways and needs matters? All right, go to information only, A, B, and C. The City of Fort Huron notice of public hearing on the Oprah District, Military Street, the Management Summary 2014 Actuarial Evaluation, Post-Employment Benefit Plan, and the Management Summary 2014 Actuarial Evaluation Retirement System. All the information is in your packet for information only.
I move that it be received and filed.
Second.
I have a motion to support to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Receive and file packets.
So move.
Support. Motion to support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And finally,
I move that we adjourn.
support. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
We hope you enjoyed this week's St. Clair County Board of Commissioners meeting. Your St. Clair County Commissioners broadcast these meetings on Comcast Local Access Channel 12 every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. If you have any questions on any part of this program, please feel free to contact your St. Clair County Board of Commissioners or staff. You can find their contact information, the meeting agenda, and videos of the meetings at www.stclaircounty.org.